Hello, everybody. I wanted to try and help out a little bit. This week's Excel assignment can be a bit of a beast. Problem being, one, that everybody has different versions of InDesign. Sorry, last class. Everybody has different versions of Illustrator. Oh man, I'm on one today. Everyone has different versions of Excel, and it's going to be different on a PC and a Mac both. So I want to show you on an up-to-date version of the Windows version of Excel because I think it's going to be the most similar to what most of you are using. But just keep in mind, it's important to remember that it may look a little different in your version of Excel, but the process is the same. So I think this should get most of us most of the way done. And if you have questions about specifics, feel free to message me, okay? So first thing I would recommend you do is do what I've done here and highlight some fields. This is going to make it much, much easier when you start to build your chart. So first thing is identify which ranges are the numerical values that indicate A and B for cyan, magenta, yellow, and then red, green, and blue. And doing so in a way that tells you which column is going to be your X and Y column in the data that you select. So you'll see in a minute that it's kind of a finicky process. There's a lot of fiddling around. And doing this first is going to make it much, much faster for you to grab the fields that you need to grab. So let's make our chart. The PDF of instructions is a little outdated. It's like the lowest common denominator of versions of Excel that people are going to be using. So that is kind of an old one. That said, let's ignore it and move on to the new one here for the purposes of this video anyhow. All right. Another thing to be aware of is if you're following along in that PDF, some of the things in there relate to doing things on lab computers here on campus, like where it tells you to go into settings and turn the mouse right click on. You definitely don't need to do that if you're at home on your own computer. All right. So first thing we do is we want to actually put a chart in here. So we need to figure out where charts come from. And I'm going to guess under data. Let's take a look under data. And I don't think so. Let's look at insert, and there we go. So insert, I knew where it was. I just want to kind of let you guys see the process of finding out where things are logically. So we're going to look at inserting something, which happens to be a chart. And again, in this version of Excel, I've got a button just for scattered charts and a little arrow next to that I drop down. It says I can pick a smooth scatter chart or a scatter with smooth lines and markers. So you're going to want to choose the version that matches the assignment. It may be labeled slightly differently in other versions of Excel, but it's this one in this version. Definitely don't be shy about using the tooltips that pop up when you put your cursor over something. That'll help you find things that correspond to the instructions a lot. So we'll click there. Not going to do a whole lot other than put a white box out in the space. And I'm just going to make mine a little bigger, put it over closer to my numbers, something like that. It can be moved around later, so it doesn't matter too much, but we want to just get the chart area in. So far, this is what a chart looks like with no data. Let's add some data to it by right-clicking. We want to select our data. That's going to be in this pop-up menu. Select data, about halfway down. And this, if I remember correctly on a Mac, it's slightly different, but you should be able to figure it out from here. We want to enter the data here, and to do that, we have to have a data range. Now, the very first one that we add, we can do it in this field here, or we can click add. I'm going to click add because that lets us put a name in to begin with. So the first one I'm going to do is cyan. So I'll name it cyan. This will help you if they're named as you go rather than naming them afterwards. We're going to go on to the series X values, and that's going to be the A star column in the LAB values that were measured from those actual printed samples on a piece of paper. So let's grab that. Let's just make a little box around all those A star values for cyan, and we're good. We're going to click into the series Y values and make sure that you delete what's there already. If you don't, it'll screw things up. We want to start with the blank canvas. So do that, and let's grab this point too, or I'm sorry, that range of cells, and just hit OK. All right, now you'll see here that we have a series for cyan, and we can click add and continue to add more series, which is obviously what we're going to do. If you drag this down, you see there is the series of data. That's if we were to chart out the A and B values for cyan on this paper. So we'll hit add, and we're going to repeat the process again. So in this case, we're going to say magenta. And I promise you guys won't have to watch me do this over and over. But let me go ahead and add that. Delete that. And then select that cell again and hit OK. And then I'm going to skip down into the RGBs just because those are a little different. If we click add here, just be aware that they start out with a 0 and go in descending order to 100. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But same thing, we're going to select the left-hand column, which is A. Oops, I did the wrong thing there. Don't put the series name in as a series of actual data. So red is what we want to name this. Okay, and then for the series X, that's where we would select this data here and this data here. Hit OK. And we're starting to get our stuff. I'll hit OK on my data entry field there, and just so you kind of the process as it is so far. And I'm going to skip ahead to a version that's a little further along and let you guys do those intermediary steps. But you're going to just do the same process to add data to your chart from all those ranges. If you stop along the way, you can always get back into that by right-clicking on the chart itself and saying select data. And this brings up that same window, and we can repeat the process of adding data here. So I'm going to cancel that though. All right. If you just add the data and don't add the names, you're going to have to do some kind of detective work to figure out which ranges of data were which ones, because these names are valuable. They're going to be what's used for the legend, and they're going to be used to help you format your chart. All right, so I'm going to try and stop the video here, and then I'll come back when I'm a little further along. Okay, so I have the spokes of my wheel, or kind of a spider web, whatever you want to look at. We're going to add some more data to this. But first, I'm going to stop and do just a little bit of formatting. You'll notice in the PDF, there's a legend, and that is one of the requirements that your document have a legend. So to get that legend, if it doesn't pop up by default for you, just click on your chart off of the data and in just the white space of your chart, kind of over here where my cursor is right now, and you'll see a little plus, and that plus lets you add or remove chart elements. So in this case, we can add titles, we can add labels, bars, whatever, but legend is what I want to add right now. So I'm going to click legend. Or if I want to go over to this little arrow on the right, I can say I want the legend the right, top, left, bottom, or there's even more options, but I'm just going to turn it on for right now. Okay. If you look at that legend, you'll see that blue is orange and green is blue and red is purple and yellow is green, and none of the colors actually match up with the data. So we need to fix that. To do that, I'm just going to close the chart elements thing there by clicking the little plus. I'm going to click in this chart and right click into the chart, and you'll see that there are some formatting options here above the pop-up menu for fill and color, and a drop down next to that where we can adjust the formatting for individual elements in it. This is by far the fastest way to do this. You can go into formatting, you can right click on every single dot and do it one at a time, but this will get you there a little faster. Okay, so we're going to go down to series cyan, click on that. And for fill, we want to fill the dots with cyan color. So we're going to go down and pick cyan, which is one of the standard colors. It calls it light blue here, but it's close enough. For the outline, same thing. Pick cyan, and then just go on down to the next item. I'm going to jump to magenta, and magenta is going to be not in the standard colors. So you can click on more fill colors, and you can pick out magenta from a list or from eyedropper or whatever you want. But I've already done it, so it shows as recent for me, and I'll let you guys add your own. But we're going to do the same process here. Just add that one. All the rest you can find red, green, blue, yellow. They're all in there. So go ahead and format the colors of your chart, and then that'll start to match up on the right. So now my cyan is cyan and magenta is magenta, and I'll go on and do the rest. But that's that process. So pretty straightforward, but just make sure that you've got a legend on your chart and that the spokes are the correct color. Okay. One of the next things we want to do is to format the axis of our chart. So we're going to click on our chart again and make sure we click around. Sometimes it takes a little trial and error. We want to get the axis of the chart. So I'm going to click on this horizontal axis right now and click format axis. We're going to do this twice, once on the horizontal, once on the vertical. So just finding the spot can be kind of hard. So I want to point it out to you right here. If you go in and click on this little paint bucket icon, this is where you can say, I want this to be a solid line. I want it to be black. I want it to be 0.75 points and so on. Just follow the PDF instructions for that. Also, you're going to want to come over to this little chart icon, axis options, click on that. And then tick marks is going to be a little ways down. So let's close these other things up. Tick marks, we want our major tick marks to be outside, and we double check the instructions over here. We want our minor tick marks to be inside. And I don't have all this memorized. So axis labels, we want to say next to axis. So labels, let's go there, label position next to axis. So for me, that was what they were on before, maybe because I've done it before, but you can see what's happening on my chart. My axis is starting to get formatted now, right? So there's a couple other things. Just keep going. We want to go to the scale tab, and it says minimum is -80. So where's scale? Let's take a look. Where is that scale? Oh, I'm minusing scale. Looks like they have it in here as bounds, not scale. Possibly. I'm going to go with that. All right. So our minimum -80, our maximum +80 in this case, the default or the automatic values actually match up here, but you may want to double check that. Major ticket 20, minor ticket 10. So 20, and this says 4. So I'm going to change that to 10 for the minor tick amount. And then just to play it safe, I'm going to go ahead and override those values by typing them in again, so they're not set to auto, just in case. Okay, so I formatted the horizontal axis. I need to do it to the vertical axis as well. And then when I come back, I'm going to let you guys mess around with formatting your own charts. I'm going to jump straight ahead to adding the rest of the data. Once you have that done, the next thing we're going to need to do is draw the lines that connect these. Now, we're not going to just draw them. We're going to use the data to chart them out. And this is probably the trickiest part of the whole assignment. Because you have to match the colors up. And if you missed that step before where you added the colors to things, it's going to be really difficult. You can do it, but colors just make it much, much easier. So like I've done here, I'm going to also just put in some borders around a few key targets. What we're looking at is the 100% values for red, yellow, green, blue, magenta, cyan, all those colors. We're going to actually just highlight them with a little border, and however you want to do that, it's okay. You can put a border, you can write words next to it to indicate where it is, but you just want to make sure that it's easy and you don't have to go searching for what those 100% values are. So I'm going to just highlight both of those 100% values for those. And then these guys down here, these overprint colors, where we can only make red by overprinting 100% of magenta and 100% of yellow, or whatever other percentage, but we're going to get red by mixing those two together, overprinting them. The 100% value is on the bottom, so just be aware of that. Same thing with green, and same thing with blue. I've got those all selected now. This is going to make it much, much easier for the next step of the process. We're going to just go back into our chart. We're going to add to our data. So right click on the chart, hit select data, and we get this familiar box that we've seen before. And we're going to add another series of information here. So this one is going to be named our process gamut limit. I believe that's what it says in the assignment. That's what it is. Essentially, it's our limit of the extent of the gamut of these colors. So here's where it gets a little tricky. The series X values are going to be the A 100% values for each of these colors in counterclockwise order so that it maps out correctly. If we just do this, I'm going to do it wrong the first time, so don't copy me right now if you're following along on the video. So series X values, we'll click on cyan once, hold down the control or command key, and we're going to click on each of these, jump down to the bottom for the red because we need to get the 100%. And then we need to click back on cyan one more time to finish it off, because we're going to make a circle. So there has to be a beginning and an end. Let's go to the series Y values. We'll delete that data again and then start at the same point. Click on the cyan 100%, magenta, yellow, jump down to the red 100%, the green, and the blue. And then once more on the cyan up top. And I'm holding down Control or Command the whole time. Hit OK. And if you get something that looks like that, we did it wrong. So make sure that I told you we get it wrong, right? So we have to go in counterclockwise order with the graph so that the loop goes around the whole thing. So I'm just going to remove this. It's easier to remove it and start over than to try to edit it. So I'll hit add one more time. Process gamut. I'm going to be lazy, not type it in, but you guys type it in. The X values. Now, remember, we're starting with cyan. So we colored our chart so that these spokes of our chart, they match up to the colors that are over here in our data set. So series X values there. Let's go ahead and click on that cyan 100%. We're going to look at what is the next counterclockwise over. It's blue. So go to the blue 100% and Control or Command to click on that. The magenta, the red. And this is why I told you highlight those fields, because it's going to make it easier. You don't have to think about it too hard. You just click on the spot. Okay. Then yellow and green. And then once more, we finish on cyan. So I'll hold down Control still and click that one more time. There we go. We're going to go over to our series Y values and repeat the process. We'll click on cyan, and then hold down Control or Command, and we're going to go to blues 100%, magentas 100%, reds 100%, and where am I? I lost my place. Yellow, that's why I highlighted them. Click yellow, and then green, and then back to cyan one last time, and hit OK. All right, now we have this loopy circle going around it, but we're good so far. We just hit OK. Right click on that, and we can format that data series. So let's format that. We'll go here into our little paint bucket, and we're going to change this to a straight line instead of a smooth line. And now we have a great gamut map. This tells us a few things. We can look at this and determine that the paper, the white point of the paper, should be right at 0, 0 on our X and Y axes. It's not, because paper is not pure 100% white always. It's a little off-white, especially certain types of paper. And this one, it's got a little bit more red, green, and yellow in it than it does the other colors. It's a little bit off center. That means it's not a perfectly white neutral color paper. That's why you take these measurements of different papers, you print all these different inks on it, and you see what kind of colors you get. Okay. The next step of the process is very similar to what we've done before already. You're going to take a look at the colors that are on the line colors over here. We're looking at values for Pantone colors to see if they fall within this gamut or without it. It should be obvious at this point, but if a color falls within it, that means that it can be made using a mix of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. If it falls without that gamut, that means that you can mix together however much yellow and magenta you want. You're never going to get a shade of red that sits out here in empty space outside of our chart. Okay. So you're going to just follow the instructions on the remainder of the PDF. You're going to turn in your Excel file here with the chart completed and formatted as it describes in the PDF. And in the text box of the assignment on Canvas, you'll just write in whether those colors can match or not. All right, so that's it. I think that I've shown you all the things that you need to know to be able to complete the assignment. I've tried to generalize it a bit because everybody's on slightly different versions of Excel and has different experiences. But if you have questions or you run into problems, just let me know. And I'll catch you guys later.